and Maria Ressa, I don't know where I'm going to sit actually, Maria Ressa, who has joined us from Manila in the Philippines. Maria, listen, when I first got confirmation from you that you were going to speak, I must share this. I thought you were a bit bonkers because you were on your way to court for a hearing and you were responding from the transportation that was taking you to court. Now, this is no laughing matter. It is a Google search away. The degree to which Maria has been harassed, it's very, very serious. And there's a new report out about the nature that she has endured of the pushback and very violent pushback on social media for the journalism that she's done. So I'm extremely grateful for her having joined us virtually over Zoom. And
wow, it's fantastic to listen, and of course, I agree, but, the difference is Rappler remains a fact-checking partner of Facebook, because even though fact-checking is like putting a finger in the dam, it's still something, and it infuses our research. So for me, I'm just going to hit 3 points, and I'm going to hopefully pick up some of the things Stephen said. I think the journalists around the world are doing our jobs at greater risk, but we have lost gatekeeping powers, and we lost it around 2014. That has been taken by technology, by social media platforms, which has abdicated complete responsibility, abdicated any responsibility. In fact, the research shows that lies laced with anger and hate spread faster and further than facts. So you can actually, I'll put the link to the Science Magazine article that said that quantified that. I would also add that not only is our lies spreading faster, so by extension, you can say that the very platforms that deliver the news today, the world's largest distributor of news is Facebook. So the very platform that distributes the news is biased against facts and is biased against journalists. And that's part of the reason you're seeing the upside down world that we're seeing today, where I think this is Oxford University's Computational Propaganda Research Project said that cheap armies on social media are rolling back democracy in at least 81 countries around the world. So I'll say 3 things in my 10 minutes. I'll give you my context. I'll outline the problem the way I see it and I'm living through it. And then finally, glimmers of a solution. How do we move forward? Because that's part of what I do every day. I try to work for the solution. So the context, why the Philippines? Why should you be interested? Well, because for the 6th year in a row, so 6 years in a row, Filipinos spend the most time on the internet, more than 10 hours a day, and on social media globally. Globally, 6 years in a row. The second thing is, the second part of that is that the pandemic has pushed all of us online, so that problem of the virus of lies, and I'll pick up from what Stephen said, because I do agree that the virus of lies is in many ways more dangerous than coronavirus. It is as deadly as coronavirus, and the effects are not just to the person, but it is, the next decade. We will feel, our countries will feel it in the next decade. In the last year alone, and this is a study by Bain, Temasek, and I can't remember the last one, but 400 million people were kicked online for the first time in Southeast Asia alone. And in the Philippines, about 40 million, I guess is what 40 million new, right? So 400 million in Southeast Asia. My context, just to do my job. This year is my 35th year as a journalist. I've gotten a lot more gray hair in this time period because in less than 2 years, the Duterte administration has filed 10 arrest warrants against me. So I've had to post bail 10 times. I testified for the very first time in 4 tax evasion charges. 2 weeks ago, I appear in court almost every week. I spend 80% of my time with lawyers. That's the second thing. Totally sorry about that. My lawyers tell me that I could cumulatively, all these charges can bring up to 100 years or more than 100 years in jail. So I could actually spend the rest of my life in prison, but it is what it is. But what I do today will matter. What I do today will determine whether or not that happens. And that's part of the reason I work as hard as I do. So that's my context. Let's look at social media today. What is the problem? Social media has become, I'm so sorry. That's my life, by the way. So social media has become a behavior modification system. That's what it is. Rappler began on Facebook at the end of 2011. And when we began on Facebook, if Facebook had had better search, we probably wouldn't have put up the website. I drank the Kool-Aid, and ironically, we were the first, among the first to get attacked, to recognize the pattern because we live on social media, right? So what does that mean by behavior modification system? Well, it is by design. I am so sorry. I don't know how, let me just try to knock that off. By design, social media is works to divide and works to radicalize. And you've heard this from many of the speakers. I loved listening to David, whose book I've read, right? We've all, I think there was one point last year where, you know, both Stephen Levy and David were in the same place, and I was there and I was like, oh, let me click it. But look, by design, and I'll point to just one thing that they've used over and over, which is how do they grow platforms? And this is all social media platforms. The recommendation engine uses friends of friends. And here's what happened in the Philippines with friends of friends. In 2016, when Rodrigo Duterte was elected to office, news organizations were basically in the center. We didn't argue about facts. And what happened, though, is as President Duterte polarized the society, because he is like former President Trump, a divide and conquer kind of guy, right? You're either with them or against them. So forget the facts. But anyway, what happened was this. Friends of friends, that little algorithm then moved the pro-Duterte supporters further right, and then moved the anti-Duterte folks further left. That was in 2016. What happened in 2017? What happened in 2018? 2019, 2020, right? So what you see happening in the Philippines is very similar to what's happened in every country around the world. But, you know, more interesting for me was to look at what happened in the United States, because the Cambridge Analytica whistleblower, Chris Wiley, actually said that the Philippines was where Cambridge Analytica and its parent company, SCL, tested these tactics of mass manipulation. We speak English, we're a former colony of the United States. They tested these tactics, and if it worked here, because we spend the most time on social media, we're like Drosophila fruit flies. Because of that, whatever worked here, they took, and the word he used was ported it over to the West. We were the guinea pig, the West, America, Hillary Clinton's candidacy, these were the targets, right? That's only friends of friends. Let me talk about what happened to me, right? So, well, before methodology, let me just say what the reality is that we're living with. Essentially, and I will post links to the research, a lie told a million times becomes a fact. If you don't have facts, you can't have truth. Without truth, you can't have trust. Without any of these things, democracy is impossible. In fact, you can go further. Without truth and trust, any kind of meaningful human endeavor is impossible. The things you have accomplished in New Zealand, I look at you wearing no masks. That is incredible. And you did that because you had a shared set of facts and you had a shared reality. When you don't have that, when you're torn apart in this way, and then the last thing the algorithms do is they radicalize, right? Another study by Rene de Ressa actually showed these moms, do-it-yourself moms, were recommended a group to join. The group they were recommended to join were the anti-vaxxers group. And then she then went further and studied the people, the do-it-yourself moms who went to the anti-vaxxer group. What was the next recommendation given to them? QAnon, right? It's a hop, skip, and a jump. So divide, radicalize. That is our world's largest distributor of news. So meaningful human endeavor, not possible. Let's talk about the methodology. This is what happened to me, and it's both personal and micro and macro in one, right? In 2016, a meta-narrative, journalist equals criminal, was seeded into the information ecosystem. And in 2016, I was laughing because I thought, I'm old, I've been around a long time, I have a long track record. Meaning is atomized on social media into meaninglessness, and track record doesn't matter. So what happened is the thing that I was laughing at in 2016 exponentially said bottom up, the lie becomes a fact to a group of Filipinos. And then in 2017, President Duterte says the same thing top down, right? So he says journalist equals criminal. A week later, I get my first subpoena. Rappler gets its first subpoena. In 2018, we get the government files 11 cases and investigation starts these cases against us. In 2019, all the arrests start happening. Oh, Valentine's Day was my, they detained me overnight just to let me feel their power. I should have been allowed to post bail, but I wasn't. So that actually only unshackled me because I realized this is abuse of power, and I'm going to need to fight for my rights. Um, 8 arrest warrants in 2018 in about 3 months. And then in 2020, the criminal trials begin. These are all criminal charges. The criminal trials begin. And then in 2020, June 15th, I was convicted. This is funny. Cyber libel. Rappler was innocent, but our former writer and I are convicted for up to 6 years because of a story we wrote 8 years earlier at a time that the law we allegedly violated didn't exist. And it was for a story that I didn't write, edit, or supervise. Very Kafkaesque. So I can't leave you with the nasty parts, right? How do we deal with it? There's 3 things that we do on a daily basis in Rappler. We look at the tech, we make sure we do great investigative journalism, and then we build community. Rappler's elevator pitch in 2012, when we first set it up, was we build communities of action. Because I was tired of throwing stories into a black hole. I wanted to see real impact. I came home to help build institutions bottom up. That was the dream. Technology kind of tore that apart, but I haven't given up yet because we don't have a choice, right? Much as everything you've heard from David and Stephen about Facebook, well, we still don't have a choice. So we're frenemies. They know I speak, I show them the data, and they take action when it is impossible not to, but they should be doing a heck of a lot more. What do I mean by doing tech? Well, let's look at legislation. Last year, I was co-chairing a committee for the Forum on Information and Democracy with former EU Parliament member Marit Kashake. We came up with a dozen systematic solutions. Forget the whack-a-mole, 250 tactics. I can put that in the link also. We're also building our own tech, our own distribution platform, because you need to have a place that is safe to dissent, a safe place to speak your mind so you can actually argue things out. And then finally, it's the communities that are our problem. It's the real people who are infected by the virus of lies. So let's go to America and look at Stop the Steal, right? The meta-narrative for Stop the Steal was seeded in August of 2019 on RT. This is not our work. This is the work of the Election Integrity Partnership. Seeded on RT, it popped out, was picked up on YouTube by Steve Bannon in August of 2020, seeded on closed Facebook pages. And then after that, picked up by Tucker Carlson, mainstreamed, and then QAnon dropped it before President Trump came top down. That led to January 6th, right? So those are real people who are infected with the virus of lies. Rehabilitation. When you get infected by the virus of lies, your facts bounce off you like Teflon, right? So what do we do in that reality? And that's what we have to deal with now. I'll end with just this. Look, this American biologist, E.O. Wilson, actually quantified. He said the greatest crisis that we're going to go through is our Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technology. With David and Stephen, I say we have to act like an atom bomb went off in our information ecosystem, and the world must come together, just like it did post World War II, Bretton Woods, NATO, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Because if you don't have facts, any meaningful human endeavor is impossible. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Yeah, Stephen, you wanna? Yeah.
Just made me think about that wonderful discussion. One of the things that we sometimes say to ourselves is this is such a huge problem that it's unfixable, but actually, of course, it's not. And I recently talked to a couple of mathematicians who said, well, algorithms, you know, I could just show me what the algorithm is and I'll spend an hour adjusting it. And if we force these to be published so people can look at them and so they're adjusted, we won't get that sequence of events where some 18-year-old young man is interested in what's all this about Confederate flags, and 3 clicks later, Facebook says, would you like to join the Proud Boys? That's how the algorithm works, but it can be changed. It would mean Facebook making less money, social media companies making less money, but you know, these problems are fixable, and I'm 100% with Maria. It's up to us as a community to get together and do it.
So I'm going to open it up to questions, but I had a quick question. Maria, listen, in many ways, you are the exception and you are extraordinary. You know this, the world knows this. Insofar as what you presented to us today, how much of it are you designing as a template for those like you, not you? Insofar as an independent distribution mechanism, in terms of the way in which you are pushing back by analyzing the attacks against you. I recommend a report that was released a couple of days ago that lists the degree of pushback against Maria. This is not your ordinary, occasional, random comment. It's extraordinary. And Maria, I mean, for as long as I have known you, you've kind of been very good at that. You've been the CSI of your own murder, if I can put it that way, which is atypical. And how much of that are you designing as a template for others outside or within even the Philippines to kind of also emulate? So those are just 2 conversation points for you. Stephen, listen, if you say what you said about Facebook, then, I mean, I'm being provocative here, it stops the conversation, right? I mean, and you can interpret it in various ways. If it's a Judeo-Christian response, if it's something is evil, you don't engage with it. It's a biblical thing, and you know the end of days are going to come about. From a Buddhist perspective, we don't have the concept of black and white and good and evil, but if you interpret it from that perspective, a non-Judeo-Christian perspective, then it's also something that is toxic and you don't want to engage with because it would lead to network effects in a karmic sense that you don't want to be the progenitor of. But here's the rub. I mean, in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and everywhere else, this is not going to go away, is it? You know, Maria used frenemies. You can use whatever word you want. We have a panel tomorrow that Jeremy is going to head about the youth. And, you know, they're on this, right? So what do we do?
I think we have to be...
Stephen and Maria, after you, yeah?
I think we have to be clear of the scale of the problem. And unfortunately, you know, I love this place. Kiwis, we're great people. But we're all too inclined to think that because we don't currently have Donald Trump's or Putin's, that somehow, you know, it's not our problem. Whereas I can tell you, going around high schools in Dunedin and talking to 13-year-olds, it's 100% a serious problem. The simple answer with Facebook, of course, is that we just... is that we just all got off it tomorrow and then they would change overnight. Okay, that's not going to happen. But as I said, let's get back to the idea that this is a global problem. So why not a UN convention, which agrees a set of rules? Force them to publish their algorithms so they can be examined. And own our own data. Data, by the way, this stuff is the most valuable stuff in the world now, people. You all know that. More valuable than uranium and gold and rare earth metals and stuff, and we give it away for free. So how about we own it, they pay us for it, and we very strictly as individuals just tell them what use we will let them make of it. That way we are controlling the conversation and not this giant corporation.
Fantastic. Maria, quickly.
Um,
Any thoughts?
My gosh, yes, tons. So first of all, you have to know how Sanjana, we were at this closed meeting at some point, and the scale and the enormity of the problem was so large that I actually started to tear up. And Sanjana was the one who brought tissues to me. So you have to know it's very personal. But here's the thing: you have to separate the human nature, the ability to manipulate our biology, from the macro scale. And in order to do that, you think about the difference between an Excel sheet, which will tell you data, versus big data, which is exponential, right? So there is manipulating our biology, but then coming at it with exponential scale. It's been important for me to learn to do that intellectually so that I know where to fight, so that I know where my rights are violated. And they're violated not just by Duterte, they're violated by the social media platforms, right? So this is that's an incredibly important thing. I think the other part is that you have to, when I said that social media is a behavior modification system, you sitting in New Zealand may think it's beyond you, but this is manipulating your biology. Great book by Daniel Kahneman called Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow. The platforms that deliver the news today are thinking fast platforms designed to manipulate and to bring out the worst of human nature, right? Journalism, finding a solution to coronavirus, climate change, the huge existential problems we have to deal with, these are thinking slow parts. So it's almost like, the old cartoons where there's a devil and angel over your shoulder. Well, it's almost like the angel has been gagged on social media. And this connects to why? Because they make a lot more money out of it. Great book by Shoshana Zuboff called Surveillance Capitalism. She chronicled it for the last decade, why we got to where we are. It is the business model. And your behavioral surplus, the data that you have, it's almost like, and again, I'm not the first to say this. This is Tristan Harris who said, think about you throwing your deepest, darkest secrets to a psychologist. And you're sitting there on the couch telling, and then that psychologist takes that and then hawks it to the highest bidder. That's what's happening to us with machine learning, building models of us on every single social media platform, and then artificial intelligence sucking it up to sell it to the highest bidder. A company, the new advertising that changes your behavior, or a country. And then the last thing I will say is geopolitical power play is deeply connected here. When Facebook took down 2 influence operations September 2020 last year, one of them was a group that Rappler helped expose because it was influence operations linked to the police and military here. But the second one was from China. Chinese influence operations that was targeting all of Southeast Asia, but was most successful in the Philippines. It was campaigning for the daughter of President Duterte for the May 2022 elections. It was also attacking me, but that's okay, I guess, and it was creating fake accounts for the US presidential elections using AI generated photos. This is our world today. I became a journalist because information is power. Well, this power is now manipulating you.